Welcome back to our studios here in Lahore. I'm Hamza Amjad, and let's start the bulletin with Iran. President Hassan Rouhani says the US withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal is the root cause of tensions in the Middle East. Indus News has this report.
Meeting Oman's Foreign Minister Yusuf bin Alawi, Rouhani said presence of foreign forces in the Gulf is a threat to regional security. This comes after France, Italy and Denmark showed their support for a British plan to establish a European-led naval mission in the Gulf. Meanwhile, Iranian government spokesperson Ali Rabai criticized the UK's proposal for a coalition naval force.
The UK and US want to bring the European war fleet in the Persian Gulf. We think that such actions are provocative in the current situation. It has a hostile message. It will stir up more tension.
Britain and Iran have seized each other's oil vessels and are yet to agree on terms to end the deadlock.
Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Britain's seizure of Iran's oil tanker is a breach of the pact. The statement comes as the remaining signatories of the deal are meeting in Austria for a last-ditch effort to save the accord. Iran, China, Russia, UK, France, Germany and the EU are discussing the pact in an attempt to ease tensions in the Gulf. The urgent meeting in Vienna was requested by Paris, Berlin, London and Tehran. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi warned that the meeting was the last chance to save the deal. He said the signatories must meet commitments towards Iran or it will abandon the 2015 accord. The accord has been on life support since the US withdrew from it and reimposed sanctions on Tehran. And for more on this, we are joined by Tehran-based political analyst, Mr. Hamid Raza Ghulamzadeh. Thanks for your time, Mr. Ghulamzadeh, and welcome to Indus News. So first of all, what measures can the nuclear deal signatories take to salvage the pact now?
Actually, the remaining parts of the nuclear deal need to be more serious in implementing the commitments that they have had. The basic point for Iran to join the negotiations from the very beginning was to benefit from the, let's say, release of sanctions and banking transactions and actually an ease for the economic situation in Iran. But unfortunately, even during President Obama, Iran could not benefit from the deal, and later we had President Trump withdrawing from it and reimposing the sanctions. And during the whole procedure, we have not seen seriousness among Europeans in particular to actually try to convince the Americans to implement the commitments, to actually fulfill the commitments, and also to discourage President Trump from leaving the nuclear deal. Anyway, if they want to have it in place, they need to be more serious in taking practical measures to keep the deal alive, actually. They are the beginning. For the beginning, it can be just to ignore U.S. sanctions against Iran's oil exports. If the United States is not able to sanction only major oil companies at the same time, just imagine that the United States wants to put sanctions on, for example, Shell, I don't know, British Petroleum, Rosneft, the other companies from all around the world. If the United States wants to actually put sanctions on all of them, the world economy would collapse immediately, because it's impossible to do that. So
right, well, Mr. Ghulamzadeh, Britain, we know that Britain is heavily involved in it as well with Iran, and they have proposed a naval coalition mission in the Gulf. What's Iran's reaction to that?
That's actually the second mistake by the Europeans, and let's say the most recent mistake, because we have seen how destructive the foreign presence in the Middle East has been during the last decades. And wherever they have been, the last time can be Libya, where the Europeans actually made a coalition. And we know about the US-UK coalition in Iraq, clearly leaving millions of casualties and destroying Iraq. And also in Afghanistan and everywhere that they have stepped in, they have destroyed everything. This coalition is actually adding to the tension and increasing the threats and dangers in this oil hub, which is a very strategic point. It is an already volatile situation here in Persian Gulf, and they're just increasing the tensions. And it seems that they are just actually trying to put more pressure on Iran to force Iran to take steps that they want Iran to take. But they need to consider that it is the security of Iran, and Iran is very, very maximum serious about its security, and it's not going to take any risk regarding the security of the region.
Okay, well, Mr. Ghulamzadeh, we also know that Iran's President Hassan Rouhani met with Oman's foreign affairs ministers. What role can Oman play to reduce regional tensions?
You know, Oman is traditionally a very close ally of Iran, and it has been, in many cases, an intermediary for Iran and other countries, like, for example, United States. And of course, we know that this recent visit by Mr. Ben Alawi was not to deliver any message from any third party. But anyway, this close relationship and close cooperation between two regional countries can be very fruitful in bringing more stability to the region and decreasing the tensions. Oman can actually, let's say, to ask other countries like United Kingdom and United States or any other European countries to give up with such ideas of coalition and such things, to actually release the illegal detention of seizure of the Iranian tanker. And of course, on the other hand, Iran will be ready to negotiate for terms to release the British tanker in the Persian Gulf. So Oman can help this procedure very, very well, and it can be a, let's say, good player in bringing more security and ease of tension in Middle East.
Right, thanks Mr. Hamid Ghulamzadeh for your time. We will be keeping a close eye on that, so stay tuned for that. Moving on, let's take a look at the Afghan peace process. US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said intra-Afghan talks will commence after the US concludes its own agreements with the Taliban. Now, this comes hours after the Afghan government said negotiations with the Taliban can start within 2 weeks. Khalilzad said Washington will ensure the intra-Afghan talks are inclusive and effective as a national negotiating team. He said negotiations will include senior government officials, key political party representatives, civil society and women. Earlier, the Afghan government said it is working with all sides for intra-Afghan talks to be held in Europe. Meanwhile, the Taliban have refused to recognize Kabul's representatives as government officials at any intra-Afghan talks. Spokesperson Suhail Shaheen said they will be recognized and acknowledged as members of political parties. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani has formally launched his election campaign. Ghani is vying for the second term as 17 other candidates will challenge him in the election. The twice postponed presidential votes will now be held on September the 28th. Moving on to Libya, where 5 medics have been killed in an airstrike by Khalifa Haftar's eastern forces on the south of Misrata, south of Tripoli. The government of National Accord said the airstrike hit a field hospital at the Nuclear camp of the Libyan government forces. 6 others were wounded in the attack. The Libyan National Army briefly took control of the camp, but retreated after retaliation from government forces. The GNA also claimed airstrikes at Khalifa Haftar's Al-Jufra base, destroying a hangar for drones. It said that the forces destroyed a munitions depot and a military transport aircraft. Pro-Haftar television channel Libya Al-Hadat confirmed the base was attacked, giving no further details. The World Health Organization has condemned the attack on the field hospital. Well, the Sudanese military and armed groups have agreed to release political prisoners from both sides as part of the reconciliation deal.
The exchange was agreed at a meeting between Sudanese generals, protest leaders and rebel groups in South Sudan. Military Commander General Hamdan Dagalo told media both the sides have also agreed to stop war and work together for peace. Rebel leader Malik Agarj said despite the failure of previous deals, he hoped everything will go on well this time. Meanwhile, Sudanese investigation committee has held the military rulers responsible for the killing 87 people in the June 3rd raid in Khartoum. Head of the committee, Fatah al-Rahman Said, said the forces took action without any orders from the top brass.
In Nigeria, 23 people have been killed by Boko Haram gunmen in Nigeria's Nagansai district. A local militia leader said the mourners were shot when they were returning from a relative's funeral.
Boko Haram fighters have intensified attacks on civilian and military targets in recent months. Earlier on Thursday, the group attacked a camp for displaced people outside Maiduguri. The decade-long ethno-religious violence has spilled over into neighboring Chad, Niger and Cameroon. It has claimed around 27,000 lives and forced more than 2 million people to flee their homes. Meanwhile, a court has allowed the government to label a Shia Muslim group as a terrorist organization and ban it.
Israeli forces have detained 14 Palestinians during raids across the occupied West Bank. 8 of them were arrested when Israeli forces stormed the occupied East Jerusalem neighborhood of Al-Isawiya. More than 6,000 Palestinians are languishing in Israeli prisons. Moving on to North Korea, which has released a Russian fishing boat, Jian Hai-Lin, held for allegedly violating entry regulations. This comes after Moscow threatened Pyongyang with freezing talks on fisheries cooperation between the two countries. Now, the Russian embassy in North Korea says all 17 crew members, including 2 South Koreans, have returned. It says the coordinated work of the Russian diplomats led to the release of the fishing boat. The Russian crabbing vessel was detained on July the 17th when it was heading to the Sea of Japan from South Korea. The North Korean Foreign Ministry says the ship was detained for violating the rules of entry and stay in Pyongyang. Russian police have arrested more than 1,400 people protesting against the exclusion of opposition candidates from local elections. The Election Commission disqualified a number of candidates from President Vladimir Putin's rival party on technical grounds. Jailed opposition leader Alexei Navalny called for the protest to pressure authorities to allow opposition candidates to contest the elections. The police also arrested hundreds of opposition activists ahead of the protests after authorities declared the gathering illegal. The crackdown continued during the protests in central Moscow as police baton-charged demonstrators. French President Emmanuel Macron will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in August over regional security issues. The meeting will be held at Fort de Bergançon on August the 19th, just a few days before the G7 summit. Macron said the corroboration of both parties' position over destabilization and conflict-ridden areas of the world will be discussed. Now, the French president said a possible increase in mutual cooperation will also be on the table. France will be presiding over the 2019 G7, which includes Britain, Canada, Germany, Italy, Japan and the US. Russia was suspended from the bloc, which previously used to be G8 in 2014 over its annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. Well, UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has asked the European Union to drop the Irish backstop if it wants to strike a Brexit deal. Johnson spoke about improving public services and driving up economic growth during his visit to Manchester.
Johnson spoke about improving public services and driving up economic growth during his visit to Manchester. The backstop is meant to ensure that the Irish border remains open, whatever the outcome of the talks on the UK and EU's future relationship. Johnson has warned that if EU refuses to renegotiate the withdrawal agreement, he will take Britain out of the bloc on October the 31st without a deal.
If we get rid of the backstop, whole and entire, then we're making a lot of progress. That would be my answer. And as for whether my friends across the channel are warming to me, well, I've always had very good relations. I'm sometimes slightly mystified by some of the obiter dicta that I read and some of the off-the-record commentary that I see. I have very friendly relations. With other EU foreign ministers already and with EU leaders as well.
Meanwhile, Chancellor of Lancaster, Michael Gove, has said that the government is now working on a no-deal Brexit. British media says Finance Minister Sajid Javid is planning to allocate £1 billion to prepare for a no-deal Brexit.
Let's head now to Venezuela, which has accused the US of breaching its airspace again. Last week, Venezuela said it intercepted 2 American aircrafts that entered its aerial zone. Venezuela's military said a surveillance aircraft breached its airspace near the coastal city of Myquechia. It said a Lockheed jet circled the area for more than 3 hours. Venezuela's army called the act a violation of aviation security and international treaties. The country's defense ministry has flagged the incidents as serious threats. Pakistan says India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is backpedaling over his request for US mediation over Kashmir due to local pressure. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India's attitude on Kashmir issue can cost it dearly. In an interview, Qureshi said the Indian government is retracting its offer after backlash from domestic political circles. He said Prime Minister Khan made the US realize that Kashmir is a flashpoint in South Asia. In a meeting with Prime Minister Khan, US President Donald Trump said Modi asked him to mediate a solution to the Kashmir dispute. Thousands of protesters in Hong Kong have taken to the streets again despite a police ban. This comes a day after riot police fired rubber bullets and tear gas at protesters in the northern Yuen Long town. 45 people were injured in the attack, which was widely blamed on Triad gang members. Protesters accused the police of turning a blind eye and colluding with the attackers. Police fired tear gas to disperse the angry protesters. And Hong Kong has seen several weeks of protests sparked by a row over a controversial extradition bill. Well, the death toll from the dengue outbreak in Bangladesh has risen to 35 over the past 26 days. A report by the health department says over 10,000 have been infected with the mosquito-borne disease this year. The government report disputes the data shared by hospitals regarding deaths, but it says in July alone, 289 people on average were hospitalized every day. The report said Bangladesh had only seen over 10,000 dengue patients twice in the last 19 years. The first case in Bangladesh was recorded in 2000. Since then, around 60,000 have been diagnosed, as 305 of them died. Well, a SpaceX Dragon cargo ship has docked with the International Space Station to deliver equipment supplies. This is a record 3rd cargo delivery mission for this particular Dragon. The reusable craft from Florida took 2 days to reach space. Dragon carried more than 2,200 kilograms of supplies, including scientific gear and a new docking adapter. The supplies will enable dozens of experiments aboard the orbiting lab. SpaceX is an aerospace company owned by billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk. Russi Taylor, the voice of Disney's Minnie Mouse for more than 30 years, has died. The Walt Disney Company said the legendary voice actress died in California at the age of 75. Since 1986, Taylor was the voice for animated series and films featuring Mickey Mouse's high-pitched and giggly partner Minnie. Mirroring the character she played, Taylor married Wayne Allwine, the voice of Mickey, until his death in 2009. In a statement, Disney's chairman Bob Iger said Taylor's voice made Minnie a global icon. And first up in the world of business, Italy has decided to go ahead with its rail link to France after protests forced the country to rethink the project. European Parliament President David Sassoli called Rome's commitment good news. The high-speed rail link includes a 58-kilometer tunnel through the Alps and is partly funded by the EU. The Treno Alta Velocita will connect the French city of Lyon with Turin in northern Italy. The controversial project has divided both the governing coalition and the citizens. A large protest was held in Piedmont, where the main railway tunnel for the project is being excavated. Police fired tear gas when demonstrators tried to force security blocks and reach the entrance. France has said it wants to reach a deal with the US on taxing tech giants in a G7 meeting next month. This comes after US President Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on French wine. France has passed a law enforcing 3% tax on the revenue of digital companies, including the US tech giants working in the country. Responding to Trump's remarks, Economy Minister Bruno Le Maire said France wants to work closely with their American friends. He said two issues should not be mixed, and it is in France's interest to have a fair digital tax. France says it will lift the tax if there is a deal on a universal levy at the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And in the world of sports, Peru is hosting its first Pan Am Games. The event began with an opening ceremony that paid homage to the past while looking to the future. About 5,000 medals will be awarded across the Pan Am and Para-Pan Am Games. 6,000 athletes from 41 countries are taking part in the competition, which also serves as Olympic qualifying for Tokyo in 23 sports. The Games will include some top athletes in non-Olympic sports.
I declare open the 18th Pan American Games, Lima 2019.
The United States are again expected to dominate the Games, with Canada and China chasing them. The US will have a 643-member team boasting 19 Olympic champions and 34 medalists.
I can only say, and it's from the heart, thank you, Peru. You've done an incredible job.
Hosts Peru have never made an impression on the Pan Am medals table, but are eager to show they are ready to step up. The country's largest sporting event has come with a $1.2 billion price tag. Well, the weather here in Lahore is slightly cooler than usual, but let's take a look around the world. And that was all I have from the News Bulletin at the moment, but do stay tuned to Indus News for further updates. And as always, thanks for watching.